have 6 months to a year of income for emergencies, but have that money earn 6 to 10% interest tax-free. In this episode, I'm going to answer the question, how much should you have in an emergency fund? Well, I'm going to share with you a number that many people don't really think about, but how you can be earning 6 to 10% tax-free rates of return on your emergency funds. And I'm going to share with you where I put my money for emergencies, and it's not where you'd think. I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and a retirement planning specialist for more than 46 years. And I've helped a lot of people have and establish an emergency fund before they start saving for long-term goals such as retirement and so forth. But actually, the same vehicle accomplishes both goals. You're going to learn what I use and why it's so powerful and why it's so liquid. But let me back up and explain to you what an emergency fund usually is for and what most people think they should have socked away in case of an emergency and where most people put that money. Now, to be honest with you, most emergencies in life only last 2-3 months, no more than 6 months. There are some times when people lose their job, they get disabled, or a pandemic happens. And I have talked to people who, because of COVID-19, they were out of work or their income suffered dramatically for 6 months or longer. And so you never know, but I would recommend at a minimum, you have between 6 months to a year of income for the bare necessities in an emergency fund. The problem is most people think an emergency fund is like a drive-up window at the bank or the credit union. And so they put money for emergencies there because they think, well, that's easy. It's liquid. I can just drive up to the drive-up window and get the money. What they don't realize is that if things were really bad, if the country was really in trouble, a lot of banks can say, sorry, you can't take your money out of our bank for 6 months. Did you know that? So I put my emergency funds into the multi-trillion-dollar insurance industry. Why? Because it's the safest place to put my money, and that's where your bank is putting 30 to 40% of the money you deposit in it to create liquidity and safety. People go, really? Yeah. Back in 2008, when the country was almost on the verge of financial collapse, the federal government asked the 5 major banks in America to disclose where they had their Tier 1 assets for liquidity and safety in case of an emergency, a run on their bank. Guess where they had 30 to 40% of their money? In the multi-trillion-dollar insurance industry. Much of it was invested in BOLI. BOLI is B-O-L-I, bank-owned life insurance. People say, what? What? Yeah, who do they own it on? It doesn't matter. They put life insurance on their stockholders, on their board members. Many times banks, credit unions will buy life insurance policies from people who want to sell it because they know the math. They know when those people ultimately pass away, it's going to be one heck of a return and it's tax-free. And so that's where your bank many times is borrowing your money. See, when you put your money in a bank, it's really being loaned to them, and they pay you 1%. On $1 million, they're only paying you $10,000 a year. They turn around and put that money into an insurance company and earn 5%, $50,000. $50,000 is 500% more, or 5 times the $10,000 they're paying you. Well, why don't you just bypass the middleman for your emergency fund? Why do you want to put it in a bank when the bank is taking your emergency fund and putting it into an institution ranked 6 notches higher in safety than they are? Do you know that most legal reserve insurance companies are ranked AAA, and the average bank in America is ranked BBB? The difference between BBB and AAA is 6 levels. They're increasing the safety by 6 notches, and they're increasing the rate of return by 5 times by taking your money, you deposited in the bank for emergencies and putting it into an insurance company in case of an emergency. Does that make any sense? So my emergency funds are in max-funded universal life insurance contracts because I've been earning between 6 to 10% rates of return for the last 40 years. The last 25 years using indexing and rebalancing, I've averaged over 10%. But folks, why would you want to have your money in an emergency fund in a bank because it has a drive-up window where you're earning 1% or less when you could increase the safety by 6 notches and you could increase the rate of return up to 6 to 10%? Hello? So that's where I have my money. Now, when you have your money into the insurance company, how easily can you access it? How about an electronic funds transfer or a phone call? An emergency, usually you don't need the money in 60 minutes. You could get it if you needed it, but most people can wait 24 hours. So that's very easy to do in this day and age where you can email, you can scan, you can send, you can electronically request something. You can access $50,000, $100,000, whatever you need out of your insurance contract. So when people save for retirement and they have $500,000 or $1 million, if that's in an IRA or 401k, you don't want to tap into that for an emergency because you're going to be penalized by the IRS 10%. You're going to have to pay tax. So if you pull out $100,000, you're only going to net maybe $60,000 because you have to pay tax and penalties. Who wants to do that? So it's not liquid. Wherever your emergency fund is deposited, you want it to pass the liquidity test. You want to be able to access it without any problems, any penalties, without triggering tax. You want to make sure it's safe, that if the market is nosediving, you're not losing money. You don't have to wait and time it, and that you're not going to trigger penalties or taxes, but also you're not subject to market volatility. So that's why I use what I call my laser fund as my emergency fund, and it doubles as my retirement fund. Most people go, what? You tap into your retirement fund for emergencies? Most people only do that if they have to because of all the penalties. I don't have any penalties. So I use that as my emergency fund because it's so liquid, it's safe, and it earns predictable rates of return that knocks the socks off of some bank or credit union with a drive-up window. It's actually more liquid if things got really bad because, as I said, the bank can close their doors for 6 months and say, sorry, we don't have to give you the money in your savings account for up to 6 months if they really wanted to. The insurance company, no, they're liquid. They've gone through the Great Depression with flying colors. In 2008, when 400 banks went under, not one single legal reserve insurance company went under. In fact, that's where the 5 major banks put their money for liquidity and safety. Are you getting it? So what are the key takeaways? Have your emergency fund maybe double as your retirement fund and not be subject to penalties and taxes if you access the money. Be earning more like 6 to 10% tax-free rates of return and have it extremely liquid. I've actually used my laser funds many times for emergencies. I remember one time I had a setback and I needed $80,000 in 24 hours. I simply arranged for that, faxed in the request, and they wired it to my bank account. It is that liquid and safe in the event of an emergency. And most people, they can get by with 6 months to a year of income, but don't have that much money sitting in a bank earning less than 1% just because it has a drive-up window and they give your child a sucker when you drive through. That's not worth what you're giving up. Does that make sense? So if you want to learn more about what a laser fund is, I'll tell you what, my 11th book has been flying out of our warehouse. It's a 300-page book that is actually 2 books in one. This side is 200 pages, 14 chapters, has all kinds of charts and graphs of how this works and why it's sort of a sacred tax-free cash cow in the Internal Revenue Code for over 100 years. But if you like to learn by stories, you flip it over and read this one. 12 chapters, about 100 pages with 62 actual client stories of how this works. The book retails for $20, but I want to gift you a copy absolutely free. Here's how to claim your free copy. If you go to laserfund.com, the website laserfund.com, And if you'll contribute $5.95 towards the shipping and handling, I will pay for the book and I'll fire it out to you absolutely free. And there's also options in there to listen and learn or watch and learn. And you'll get answers to this question and many more, not only on how you can use the laser fund for emergencies, but retirement, college funding, for business working capital, for real estate management, for estate planning. It is the dream solution for many goals.